3 months ago, my wife told me our son might not be mine, and the real father? My younger brother. Not my enemy. Not a stranger. My brother Kyle. He was always the golden boy. I was the shadow in his spotlight. And somehow, I was still the one who lost everything. If you'd asked me 10 years ago whether Kyle resented me, I would have said no. He had no reason to. He was our mom's pride and joy, cooked meals, folded laundry, homework done for him. Me? I taught myself how to shave and stitched my own ripped backpack in 6th grade. The expectation was that I'd help him, never the other way around. It was always, he's your brother. Be there for him. I was there every damn time. And in return, he made my life hell. Kyle mocked me relentlessly, my glasses, my height, my quiet nature. He read my journal aloud to his friends once and told Mom I wrote creepy stuff. She laughed and told me to stop being so sensitive. Once, he mixed gravel into my cereal. Said it was a joke. I was 11. And when I finally stood up for myself, our mother asked me why I was always provoking him. By the time we hit high school, Kyle's bullying graduated into something darker. He tried to set my hair on fire. My mother defended him. Called it horseplay. It wasn't until my dad, usually stoic and silent, threatened to call the cops that Kyle finally looked scared. I think that was the first time he realized actions could have consequences. For a moment, I thought we were turning a corner. We weren't. Even after that, he kept his distance, only ever engaging through backhanded insults or ignoring me entirely. Mom said I should try harder to bridge the gap. I tried. God, I tried. When I left our home in Columbus to attend Northwestern on a scholarship, I thought I'd finally outrun him. I was finally free, until I brought my girlfriend, Hannah, home for the holidays. That's where this mess really began. Hannah had grown up in a conservative family like mine, where mistakes were swept under rugs and appearances mattered more than truth. We met during a winter mixer, and 3 years later, I proposed after graduation when we found out she was pregnant. It wasn't a fairy tale romance, but I believed in it. I believed in her. I paid for our wedding. Bought a small house in the suburbs. Worked 2 jobs so she could stay home with the baby. I never once doubted her love or loyalty. Until she told me the baby might not be mine. I didn't speak. I couldn't. I just sat on the edge of our bed staring at the carpet, Hannah's words echoing in my skull like gunshots I hadn't heard go off. Kyle, it might be Kyle's. It felt like she'd stabbed me with a fork, then asked me to understand the reasoning behind it. I remember asking quietly, "When?" And she replied like she was giving a weather report. "That winter I stayed at your parents' place. You remember, right? Thanksgiving to New Year's." Yeah. I remembered. I remembered how Kyle, for once, had been polite. Engaged. Chatted with her over breakfast while I was still asleep. Played video games with her when I left to help Dad install the new furnace. She'd invited him to movies with us. Said she wanted to help mend our relationship. Said it would mean a lot if I tried harder with my brother. God, I was a fool. She explained it like it had just happened. He was vulnerable, she said. Going through a breakup. They talked late into the night. And then he kissed her. "And you kissed him back?" I asked, already knowing. She nodded. "I thought it was a one-time thing. But then I went back again, a few more times." I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. That scared her more than anything, I think. "You're mad," she whispered. "No," I said. "I'm just done." She started crying. Not remorseful tears. Manipulative ones. The kind meant to pin guilt back onto me. "You're going to break our family over a mistake?" "A mistake?" I repeated. "Is that what you call sleeping with my brother?" I packed a duffel bag that night and drove straight to a motel near O'Hare. I stared at the ceiling until 3 a.m., mentally playing back every family dinner, every forced hug, every polite laugh they'd shared in front of me. How many times had I let them be alone together while I was doing laundry or running errands? The next morning, I drove to my parents' house in Springfield. My father opened the door. I told him I needed 20 uninterrupted minutes. He listened. For once. I laid it all out: how Kyle had been sleeping with my wife, how she admitted the affair spanned years, how my son might not be mine. The room went ice cold. At first, my mother, predictably, defended Kyle. He wouldn't do that. She must be lying. But I didn't come unprepared. I had a voice recording of Hannah's confession. I played it. My dad sat in silence, elbows on his knees, face blank. My mother's hands trembled as she reached for her tea, spilling half of it down her blouse. And then I made the call. I put Kyle on speaker, told him I was alone, just wanted clarity. He laughed, actually laughed, when I asked about the affair. She came on to me, he said. She always wanted someone confident. Then he added, let's be real, man. You were just a placeholder. That's when I said, thanks for confirming. Mom and Dad are sitting right here. Dead silence. Then panic. He started stammering, backpedaling. Wait, I didn't mean it like that. But the damage was done. My father stood up, walked to the phone, and said something I'll never forget. You're no longer our son. Don't ever come back here. And he hung up. I sat in stunned silence as the weight of those words settled. Years of favoritism, dismissed abuse, ignored pain, all undone in 30 seconds. I should have felt relief. But all I felt was grief. The next few weeks passed like a blur of legal documents and cold dinners alone. I hired an attorney. A good one. When Hannah got served, she called me sobbing, but I didn't answer. She followed up with a long email, half apology, half plea to stay in our son's life. But that was the problem. I wasn't sure he was my son. We did a paternity test. I braced myself for the results, but nothing prepares you for the word excluded next to your name on a DNA report. I sat there at the clinic staring at the paper like it had teeth. It didn't just confirm the betrayal. It rewrote my entire identity. Every memory, first diaper, first word, first birthday party, was now laced with someone else's blood. Kyle's blood. I'd raised my brother's child for 6 years. Hannah begged me to stay in his life. Said he still needed me. That I was the only real father he'd ever known. But every time I looked at that kid, I saw Kyle's face. His crooked smile. His smug eyes. I couldn't do it. I walked away. I rented a small place near Navy Pier. For the first time in almost a decade, I slept without someone else's breath beside me. No cartoons in the background. No baby monitor. Just silence. And you know what? I welcomed it. 2 weeks later, my dad called. I've decided, he said flatly. I'm cutting Kyle out of the will. At first, I didn't believe him. Dad had always been loyal to a fault, especially to Kyle. But this time he meant it. He made his choices. He can live with the consequences. The estate wasn't enormous, but it was significant. Nearly $2 million between retirement, savings, and life insurance. Everything would go to me, with one condition: if Dad passed first, Mom would retain the house until her death. I agreed without hesitation. Somehow, Kyle found out. Maybe my mother slipped. Maybe he'd guessed. Regardless, he called me one afternoon like nothing had happened. No apology. Just desperation dressed up as brotherly concern. Ethan, he said. Look, I know we've had our issues. I hung up. He called again. This time he went straight into sob story mode. How he dropped out of school, how Hannah was demanding child support, how he was broke and working 2 part-time jobs. You have no idea what I'm going through, man, he said. I almost laughed. You mean the life you chose? Yeah. I do. Come on, don't be like that. She tricked both of us. I let out a slow breath, gripping the edge of the counter. I divorced her. So now she's your responsibility. He paused. Wait, you're not even helping with the kid? I almost smiled. Not my kid, remember? That's when the crying started. I'd never heard Kyle cry like that. Not when he crashed Dad's truck. Not when he broke his wrist in 10th grade. But now, stripped of his status and money and lies, he was just another scared man on the other end of the phone, begging someone he once tormented for mercy. You don't understand, Ethan. Everyone's turned on me. Even Grandma won't talk to me. I let the silence sit heavy. Good, I said. Maybe now you'll understand what it's like to be unwanted. And I hung up for the last time. 2 days after I told Kyle never to call me again, my father called me, voice tight, like he'd been clenching his jaw for hours. Your mother told him. I didn't need to ask what he meant. Somehow, Kyle had learned every detail of the will, the inheritance, the plan to cut him out entirely. The only way that happened was if someone let it slip, and that someone was Mom. I drove back to Springfield that night. When I walked through the front door, she was already waiting in the kitchen, tears in her eyes like she'd been rehearsing sorrow. I didn't mean to betray your trust, she said. You didn't betray me, I replied. You betrayed Dad. She crumpled like paper. Dad entered a moment later, and the look on his face said everything, stone-cold resolve edged with disappointment so sharp you could feel it in your bones. He didn't yell. He didn't rage. Instead, he delivered one line with quiet gravity that chilled the room. If you believe what Kyle did is forgivable, then you and I don't belong in the same house. The silence that followed was nuclear. My mother's mouth opened to argue, then closed. He turned and walked out. I stood there for a moment with her, unsure if I should say something, then decided against it. Let her sit with it. Let her feel the weight of what it means to back the wrong son for decades. A few weeks later, my divorce was finalized. Hannah and her lawyer tried to claw out alimony, claimed she'd sacrificed her career for our family. But her years-long affair, plus the paternity test, blew any sympathy out of the courtroom. Her face when the judge ruled in my favor was the closest I'd come to feeling sorry for her. Almost. We signed the papers. She cried in the hallway. I didn't stop walking. A few days after that, the final paternity results arrived by mail. Not that I needed confirmation, but there it was, in all caps. Father Kyle B. Matthews. Probability, 99.9999%. I sat on the couch holding that paper for a long time. Longer than I expected. Because here's the thing nobody tells you. When you lose a child that never belonged to you in the first place, it doesn't hurt less. It hurts differently. It's a slow grief. A vapor that gets into everything. I'd been this boy's dad for 6 years. He looked up to me. Asked me to read to him. Held my hand crossing the street. Told his preschool teacher his favorite superhero was my dad. But now I couldn't look at him without seeing Kyle. And I hated that. I tried. I tried for a week. I visited twice. Hannah tried to spin it as a new beginning. But I couldn't do it. The kid asked if I'd stay for dinner, and I had to fake a smile so hard my teeth hurt. The truth was, every breath inside that house made me feel like I was choking on smoke from a fire I didn't start. I ghosted them after that. I know how it sounds. But I had to choose myself for once. I had to stop bleeding for people who would never stop stabbing. It's been 5 months since I last saw my brother. Since then, I've rebuilt something that feels like a life. I moved into a sleek condo downtown, just me and the quiet hum of a life no longer dictated by anyone's chaos but mine. My weekends are slow. My fridge stays full. I sleep through the night. Then last week Kyle called again. This time, he didn't ask. He begged. Said he'd dropped out of school. Said Hannah was dragging him through court for child support. Said he was broke, working at an auto shop during the day, delivering food at night. I've got nothing, he said, voice raw. I need help. Please, man. You're my brother. I laughed. I reminded him that when I was drowning in betrayal, he was on hotel dates with my wife. That when I held a child I thought was mine, he was in the shadows, building a second life on top of mine like a parasite. "You're not my brother," I said. "You're a cautionary tale." He tried to play the pity card, said even our grandparents had cut him off, that his friends had disappeared, that Hannah was threatening to take the kid and move across the country if he couldn't pay. "That's between you and your mistress," I said. "She's not." He stopped. Change tactics. "Ethan, man, I get it. I messed up. But don't let Dad do this to me. He's leaving everything to you. Everything. I'm getting nothing. He told me. $1. That's what he said, $1. I didn't deny it. "Sounds fair," I replied. "You don't even need the money," he snapped, voice cracking. "You've got your life together. I don't. And now you're going to leave me with nothing? After all these years?" "No," I said. "You left you with nothing. I just stopped saving you." And then I ended the call. But that wasn't the last conversation. My mother called later that night. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail, soft, sad, trying to sound gentle. "He's still your blood," she said. "Hasn't he paid enough?" Funny. When I needed someone to protect me from Kyle, she told me to be patient. Now she wanted me to forget years of damage like it was spilled milk. My dad heard the voicemail. Sat her down the next morning. "If you ever talk to Kyle again," he said, "we're done." I didn't expect him to mean it. But he did. My father, the same man who once called Kyle his mirror, told my mother that enabling betrayal makes you complicit in it. The next day, she deleted his number. Kyle never apologized. He only ever begged. That's when I knew remorse never came. Only regret. The last I heard, Kyle and Hannah are living in a small rental in Joliet. He's behind on bills. She's trying to rebuild the illusion of a happy family on the ashes of what they stole. They're raising my almost son together. A sick joke only the universe could write. As for me, I've started dating again. Slowly. Carefully. I'm in therapy. I'm learning that self-worth isn't measured by how much pain you're willing to swallow for the sake of family. And I've made peace with one thing. You don't have to forgive people just because you shared DNA. You don't have to bleed just because someone else keeps cutting. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to say, enough.